And that one thing could be the difference that gets you into med school. How do you write a work and experiences section that will get you into med school? One of the biggest pieces of misinformation we're seeing at our consulting company is this idea that you should write a story in each of the entries for the work and experiences section. Now, I'm the first person to admit that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's different ways to do this application successfully. But I'd like to challenge myself and challenge you to think about that advice critically. Think behind the scenes. What is being asked when you are writing that description section? Like, what does the admissions committee want to know? They're trying to find out what exactly the role was, what you did, what the outcomes were, what you learned, how it shaped you. Why is it relevant that they understand this thing about you for the application? So let's take a theoretical example that somebody, person's really invested in research. They've done 500 hours of research in a certain lab. And in their description, they write about one lab meeting that happened on a Sunday afternoon where they learned a particular thing. I, the person reviewing their application, wanted to understand the scope of the work they did for those 500 hours. I wanted to know the outcomes. I wanted to know what was done, what was accomplished. Instead, you boil it down to a single story. Now, in that example, I think most of us can sort of detect that it's a little bit of a weird thing to do, to write about one random lab meeting. But let's go to a much more common mistake that people make, where they're talking about a shadowing experience or the job they had for 2 years as a medical assistant or something like that. And in their 700 AMCAS characters, they write about some arbitrary patient story. I don't know the scope of their responsibility. I don't know what their key takeaways from the role was. I don't know about 498 of their 500 hours. And because of that, they look like a poor communicator, and they look like they are shallower than somebody else who was able to communicate to me why all 500 of those hours taken together matter to them. So I'm going to give you the secret formula right here to get every single one of these entries correct. Line 1 is what the experience was. Describe what the lab did or what the position was. Short, sweet, and to the point. Line 2 is what your particular responsibilities were. That way they can understand the scope of the work that you did. Line number 3 is what were the main products of the experience. What were the outcomes? So if it was a student organization you founded, we recruited X many people or did X many events. If it was a research project, this resulted in such and such progress being made on the project, or such and such publications or presentations. And then the fourth thing is any key takeaways. This taught me this. This informed my career direction in such and such way. The exact mix of those 4 elements for each entry might be a little bit different, but if you take the admissions committee through that in a linear fashion, you'll be describing coherently what you did on the whole rather than boiling it down to some arbitrary story.